I was already gone when the first call hit my phone, then the second, then the third. I watched the screen light up again and again with the same name, Marlene Rhodes, my manager. I let every call die in silence. By the time the fourth one buzzed through, I knew the office had finally realized what I had been counting on for weeks. I was not coming back. From what my coworker Jonah later told me, the confusion started around 8:15 in the morning. My desk was empty, my chair pushed neatly in, my laptop gone, no warning, no explanation. She was here yesterday, someone muttered. Did she say anything? Another whispered. Marlene's voice cut through the chatter. Call her again. When no one moved fast enough, she snapped louder. Now. Phones rang, voicemails filled, nothing reached me. I imagined the moment she marched to my desk, the pause when she saw the bare surface, the slow inhale when she noticed the folded slip of paper placed exactly where she couldn't miss it. Jonah told me she picked it up without reading. At first she simply wanted to know why I was gone. Then he saw her expression shift as she read the 4 words I had left behind. Check your spam folder. He said. The office fell silent. Everyone just stared at her. What the hell does that mean? She demanded. She stormed back to her office and slammed the door. A beat later, her voice tore through the hallway. Oh my God, what is this? Why was this in spam? Who did this? The scream echoed long enough for people on the other side of the floor to hear. I sat in my car across the Willamette River, letting the sound play in my imagination. This moment had never been about humiliating her. It had never been about revenge. It was about finally forcing someone who had erased me for 6 years to see what she pretended did not exist. Everything she found in that folder led back to the morning I handed her a letter she refused to read. To understand why all of this happened, I have to go back 4 weeks. I wrote the letter by hand because typing felt too easy, too distant from what 6 years of exhaustion had carved into me. I sat at my kitchen table the night before, pressing the pen so hard it left grooves in the paper underneath. I rewrote the first line 3 times until the words stopped shaking. I am formally resigning from my position. Even reading it aloud felt unreal. My apartment was quiet except for the pen clicking against my thumb. By the time I folded the letter, my hands were cold. But my decision was steady. At 9 the next morning, I walked into the office of the Portland Learning Initiative, the nonprofit that preached community, compassion, and collective care while quietly burning through people like they were replaceable parts. Marlene looked up from her desk when I stepped in. Lucy. Make it quick. I have back-to-back meetings, she said, already annoyed. I need to give you this. I placed the envelope in her hand. She didn't open it. She didn't even glance at the handwriting that I had spent half the night trying to make legible. She slid it underneath a stack of grant proposals and reached for her coffee. That all she asked. It's my resignation, I said. Her eyebrows lifted half a centimeter. We can talk about that later. There is nothing to talk about. Well, she sighed. I suppose everyone needs attention sometimes. She dismissed me with a wave before I could respond. On my way out, I passed the small HR alcove. My footsteps slowed when I heard Marlene's voice. She dropped off some dramatic letter, she said lightly. She is just seeking attention. Ignore it for now. My throat tightened. I waited for Diane from HR to object, or at least sound uneasy, but she only whispered, understood. Their voices drifted back into laughter. I walked away feeling hollow, the edges of my resignation letter still pressed into my fingertips. 6 years reduced to an inconvenience they could shove beneath a pile of paperwork. And something inside me shifted as I stepped back into the hallway. Quiet but final. The morning after Marlene buried my handwritten letter, I sat at my desk and typed a formal resignation. No emotion, no story, just policy. I copied every line from the employee handbook and added the date, my role, and my final day. I copied HR, the operations director, and my program team. When I hit send, a small notification appeared delivered at 9:21. By noon, nothing. By the next day, still nothing. I stopped by HR's alcove. Diane looked up, startled. Did you get my resignation email? I asked gently. She tugged at her badge lanyard. I have not seen anything come through. I copied you directly. She nodded without meeting my eyes. Marlene asked us to route all communication through her for now. Just give it some time. Time. The word tasted sour. For the next week, every email I sent sat unanswered. floating into silence like stones thrown into deep water. I tried asking politely, then professionally, then plainly, please confirm receipt. No confirmation came. One afternoon, during a virtual meeting with a funder, Marlene shared her screen to walk through a report draft. She clicked too fast, moving between tabs, until an email settings window flashed for a split second. My name was right there. Rule from Lucy Harrington, moved to spam. My voice caught in my throat. She kept talking about key metrics while I stared at the tiny rule burned into my vision. The rule was deliberate. It had been typed, saved, and activated. Not a mistake, not a glitch. When the meeting ended, Marlene smiled in that clipped way she used when she believed she was safe. Lucy, fix the wording in section 4, she said, gathering her papers, and stop sending unnecessary emails. It clutters my inbox. I nodded because the alternative was rage, and rage would only give her a story to use against me. As she walked away, I understood that I had not been ignored. I had been erased by design. The partnership meeting in Old Town was supposed to be the moment our months of work finally made sense. I had spent late nights compiling attendance data, feedback logs, and program outcomes. When Marlene introduced me to the room, she didn't look at me, but I still stood, clutching the notes I had rewritten 3 times. I'll walk everyone through our findings, I began. Over the past 6 months, Marlene cut in before I could finish the sentence. Actually, let me jump ahead so we stay on schedule. She slid my notes away with a practiced ease. The key insight is that our community participation surged because of our adjusted outreach strategy, which I designed earlier this year. I stared at her. Those were my lines, my analysis, my strategy. I tried again. The increase actually came from the survey redesign. Marlene's tone snapped like a rubber band. Lucy, please do not interrupt. We talked about this. She turned to the partners with a sympathetic smile. We are experiencing some internal delays because certain staff did not finalize documentation on time. Heat crawled up my neck. The documentation was complete, I said quietly. You reviewed it last week. A silence spread across the table. Colleagues shifted in their seats, eyes fixed on their laptops. No one defended me. No one corrected her. Marlene closed her folder. Let's move on. We cannot afford mistakes at this stage. The meeting ended with handshakes and polite goodbyes, but I walked out feeling hollow. Outside, the air smelled like cold rain. My phone buzzed with a message from Jonah. I'm sorry, she shouldn't have said that, but even he didn't say it out loud in the room. When I got home, I sat on the floor, still wearing my coat. I felt the weight of 6 years pressing into my chest. Every dismissal, every stolen idea, every moment I told myself to stay patient. I wiped my eyes with the back of my sleeve. The humiliation was sharp, but underneath it, something steadier formed. I was done begging for basic dignity. My exit would not come through another ignored letter. It would be designed carefully, quietly, and entirely on my own terms. I chose the date quietly, circling it in the corner of my planner where no one would notice. 4 weeks. That was the time I needed. Not to prepare an escape, but to prepare the truth. The next morning, I walked into the office with the same soft smile I had worn for years. Marlene glanced up briefly. Good. You're early, she said. We need revised numbers for the grant narrative. I'll handle it, I replied, my voice even. She nodded, satisfied. She didn't sense anything different, and that was the point. While she talked, I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it innocently Program Notes. Inside, I began storing everything she had dismissed, twisted, or claimed over the past months. I copied meeting transcripts where she contradicted herself. I took screenshots of funding reports she altered after approval. I saved my unanswered HR emails, each time stamped and unread. I did my work flawlessly. I attended every meeting. I answered every request. People whispered that I seemed calmer than usual. Marlene liked this version of me: silent, agreeable, efficient. She mistook calm for compliance. One afternoon, I stopped by HR to request an updated job description for a report. Diane, still avoiding my eyes, handed me the document. Lucy. Just be careful, she murmured. Marlene has influence. People listen to her. I know, I said. She told leadership you've been unstable lately. I nodded again, not reacting. Diane lowered her voice. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying you should protect yourself. I am, I replied, thank you. I left before she could ask anything else. In the weeks that followed, I constructed my silence like a wall, steady, disciplined, impossible to see over. Marlene praised my new attitude, thinking she had finally broken me down. But every quiet moment, every polite nod, every perfectly completed task was part of a countdown she didn't know she was living inside. The day I stopped fearing her was the day her foundation began to crack, one unspoken truth at a time. In the 4th week, the work shifted from gathering proof to shaping it. Every night after leaving the office, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and 6 years of files spread around me. I was not trying to sound persuasive. I was trying to be undeniable. I opened spreadsheets from my first year, cross-checked attendance logs with funding claims, and highlighted every inconsistency Marlene had approved. I compared timestamps on altered reports. I documented grant hours she reassigned to projects that never existed. Line by line, the pattern formed itself, clear as daylight. During a staff meeting, Marlene said, "Lucy, you are unusually quiet today." "I am listening," I answered. She smiled like she believed that. "Good. Let us keep moving forward." That afternoon, I stayed late and drafted the email I knew she would never open willingly. I kept my tone precise, calm, and simple. I listed each issue with its corresponding documentation. I attached folders, subfolders, and timelines. I included the resignation she had hidden under a pile of papers and the formal email she had diverted into spam. There was no anger in my wording. Anger would have given her an excuse. Around 9 in the evening, I reread the final draft. It was lean, clean, and complete, the kind of message that could not be softened or manipulated. I clicked Schedule Send, choosing the time I knew the office would be settling in, just before morning meetings began. Then I pulled one last sheet of paper toward me. I wrote slowly, making sure the letters were steady. "Check your spam folder." I folded the note and set it on top of my bag, ready for the morning when I would leave my desk for the last time. The truth was finally assembled, silent but sharp, and it no longer needed me to defend it. I woke before my alarm, the room still dim, my breathing steady. For the first time in years, I did not rush. I brewed coffee slowly, sat by the window, and let the warmth settle into my hands. At 8 o'clock sharp, I turned off my phone's ringer and placed its screen down on the counter, across the river. The office was beginning to stir. Jonah later told me the first comment came from one of the interns. "Where's Lucy? She is never late." Someone else replied, "Her desk is empty. Even her laptop is gone." Marlene appeared minutes later. "Has anyone heard from her?" She tapped her nails against her phone. "Call her," they tried. One call after another, all going to voicemail. "She is ignoring us," Marlene muttered. "She is being dramatic." Diane from HR stepped out of her alcove. "Marlene, did she submit any paperwork?" "We do not have anything formal." "She sent nothing," Marlene snapped. "She is pulling a stunt." A junior staffer, Olivia, approached timidly. "Her desk? There is something on it." "What now?" Marlene pushed past her. On my desk lay the single folded slip of paper. Olivia handed it over. Marlene unfolded it, lips tightening around each word she read. "Check your spam folder," she said aloud. It walked by at that moment. "Actually, Marlene, your inbox is showing a large batch of unread messages this morning. Might be a filter issue." She spun toward her office without another word. At 8:25, the scheduled email reached every recipient I had listed: HR operations, program leads, the board liaison. All of them saw it instantly, all except Marlene. In her office, she opened her inbox to an empty screen and hissed. "Where is it?" Her voice rose until it suggested, very cautiously. "Maybe look in spam." When she opened the folder, she screamed, not out of anger, out of recognition. Everything she had buried was sitting in front of her. I heard about the moment Marlene opened her spam folder from 3 different people, each retelling it with the same stunned disbelief. Jonah said she went silent first, staring at the screen as if it had betrayed her. Olivia said she whispered, "No, no, this cannot be right." Like the truth was something she could still negotiate with. Diane told me she heard the scream before she knew what caused it. Inside that folder sat everything Marlene had insisted did not exist. My handwritten resignation, scanned and emailed to her after she dismissed the original. 4 weeks of unanswered messages requesting acknowledgement. screenshots of altered reports with timestamps that contradicted her claims, documentation showing the programs she said she led were built from my notes, and the final email, organized so neatly that not even she could twist its meaning. Why did none of these come to my inbox? Marlene demanded, storming into IT. You created a filter, the technician said carefully. It redirected anything from Lucy Harrington. It was manually set. People standing nearby heard her inhale sharply. Then, quieter. Remove it, now, and do not repeat that to anyone. But someone already had, within an hour. HR called an emergency meeting. Diane's voice trembled as she addressed the room. We are initiating an internal review of supervisory conduct and documentation handling, effective immediately. By early afternoon, my phone still on silent, filled with quiet acknowledgments from coworkers. I read everything, thank you. You did what the rest of us were too scared to do. I am sorry we did not speak up sooner. Around 3:30, an email came from HR. Your resignation has been processed. Your final day was recorded as today. Weeks too late, but still an ending. I closed the message and let the relief settle. The truth had finally landed where it belonged. And there was nothing Marlene could do to bury it again. I did not ask for updates after I left. I did not check the website, or call a single coworker, or search for whispers online. I wanted distance, but Portland is a small city in all the ways that matter, and news has a way of finding the people who no longer need it. Jonah was the first to reach out. The board met for 4 hours, he said quietly. They rewrote half the internal policies. It is different here? Different how I asked, though I kept my voice steady. They created a rule that all resignations must be acknowledged within 2 business days. He said, in writing, by HR, not supervisors. I could almost hear the exhale he had held for years. He continued, and no one is allowed to set private email filters anymore. Everything has to be transparent. A day later, Olivia emailed from her personal account. They are doing a full audit of all supervisor conduct, she wrote. Marlene is not allowed to manage staff or budgets anymore. They said it is permanent. A word that had never been used in my presence while I worked there. With Marlene, everything had always been temporary, conditional, and selective, except her ability to silence people. Another message arrived from Diane. She kept it brief. We have introduced new transparency rules for the entire Portland network. Training begins next month. Thank you for shedding light on gaps we should have addressed long ago. I reread her message, not for validation but for clarity. The changes were real. The ground beneath that organization had shifted, not because I tore it apart, but because the truth had forced it to look at itself without flinching. I did not respond to any of the messages right away. I sat with them instead, letting the weight lift slowly. The system had been pushed to move, and for once, it did not push back. 2 weeks after leaving the Portland Learning Initiative, I stepped into my new office in the Pearl District. The building was smaller, the budget tighter, but the energy felt different, open, earnest, uncalculated. People greeted one another without glancing over their shoulders first. I could breathe here. On my first morning, a young intern named Miles peeked into my doorway, holding a tablet against his chest. I emailed you twice last night, he said. Sorry if that was too much. I just was not sure if I formatted the youth outreach report correctly. His shoulders were tense, like he expected reprimand. I shook my head. Your messages will never go to spam with me, Miles. You did the right thing. He let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. Thank you. I just want to get it right. Then we will work on it together, I said. He smiled, small but sincere, before returning to his desk. The moment lingered. It felt simple, but something in me settled with it. At home, in the top drawer of my bedside table, lay the handwritten resignation letter Marlene tossed aside. I kept it in a plain folder, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that I had not imagined any of it. The dismissal, the silence, the filter she built to keep my words out of sight. I never wanted her downfall. I never needed to see consequences delivered in dramatic fashion. What I wanted was a life where my voice did not have to fight for a place to land. A life where communication was not a threat, where truth did not need armor. In my new role, no one sidestepped my questions. No one claimed my work while looking me in the eye. No one rewrote the narrative to bury me underneath it. The victory was not in what collapsed behind me. It was in what opened ahead, I had not destroyed anything. I had simply made sure the truth reached the right inbox and that my own voice stayed unfiltered, finally and fully heard.